My name is Riley Morgan, and I just turned 25 last month. For 3 years, I saved every penny I earned to buy and restore my dream car, a 1969 Ford Mustang. Family is supposed to have your back, but sometimes they're the ones who stab you in it. When I came home to find my car missing from the garage, I never expected my parents to confess they'd sold it to pay for my sister's college tuition. Before I tell you how I made them all regret crossing me, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about family justice served cold. Growing up as the middle child between my older brother Tyler and younger sister Amber was never easy. Tyler was the firstborn golden boy who excelled at sports and eventually joined the military, making our parents burst with pride at every opportunity. Amber was the baby of the family, coddled and spoiled from day one with her big blue eyes and ability to wrap our parents around her little finger. And then there was me, Riley, the middle child who never quite fit either mold. My passion for classic cars started with my grandfather, Jack Morgan, who worked as a mechanic his entire life. While my parents were busy attending Tyler's football games or Amber's dance recitals, I would sneak off to Grandpa Jack's garage. The smell of motor oil and the sound of classic rock playing on his old radio became my sanctuary. He taught me everything he knew about engines, transmissions, and the art of restoration. When other kids my age were obsessing over video games, I was learning how to rebuild carburetors and replace brake lines. Cars have souls, Riley, he would tell me while we worked side by side on his 1957 Chevy. Treat them with respect, and they'll never let you down. Unlike people, he'd add with a wink. When I was 17, Grandpa Jack passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. At the reading of his will, I inherited his complete set of tools and his collection of rare car parts. My parents thought it was junk, but to me, it was priceless. That day, I made a promise to myself and to my grandfather's memory that someday I would restore a classic car of my own. After high school, while Amber was being showered with college brochures and Tyler was receiving commendations in the Army, I took a different path. I enrolled in technical college for automotive repair and started working at Bennett's Auto Shop. The owner, Frank Bennett, took me under his wing much like my grandfather had. By day, I worked as a mechanic, and by night, I bartended at the Rusty Nail to make extra money. Every dollar that didn't go toward rent or food went into my car fund. For 3 years, I lived this double life. While friends my age were going out and having fun, I was either elbow-deep in engines or mixing drinks until 2 a.m. My social life became almost non-existent, but I didn't care. I had a goal, and nothing was going to stop me from achieving it. Then came the day I found her. I was scrolling through online listings when I saw it, a 1969 Ford Mustang in Highland Green. The exact model and color I'd dreamed of since I was 12. The car was in terrible condition, rusted body, torn interior, engine that wouldn't start, but I could see past all that. The owner was asking $8,000, which was a steal considering what it could be worth fully restored. I withdrew almost my entire savings and drove 3 hours to a small town called Millfield to see the car in person. The elderly man selling it had inherited it from his brother and just wanted it gone from his property. After a bit of negotiation, I bought it for $7,500 and arranged for a tow truck to bring it back to my parents' house, where I was still living to save money. When that Mustang arrived on the back of the tow truck, my parents were less than thrilled. "You spent your entire savings on this piece of junk?" my mother, Sarah, asked incredulously. "It's not junk, Mom. It's a classic. Once I restore it, it'll be worth 3 times what I paid," I explained, but I could tell she wasn't listening. "Well, keep it in the garage and don't let it leak oil on the driveway," my father, Michael, grumbled. "And this better not distract you from your real job." For the next 8 months, every free moment I had was dedicated to restoring that Mustang. I scoured junkyards for original parts, connected with collectors online, and even drove to neighboring states to find specific components. Frank let me use the shop's equipment after hours, and I brought over parts one by one to work on them. The engine rebuild alone took 2 months of weekends. I replaced the rusted floor pans, restored the dashboard, reupholstered the seats with period-correct material, and painstakingly repaired every inch of bodywork before giving it a fresh coat of that beautiful Highland green paint. I even tracked down the original style of wheels and had them restored to factory condition. While I worked, I thought often of Grandpa Jack. I named the car Eleanor, after my grandmother, imagining the two of them together again through this creation. Each turn of the wrench felt like a conversation with him, each problem solved a lesson he'd taught me years ago. Meanwhile, family dynamics continued as they always had. Tyler would call home from his military base, and my parents would put him on speakerphone, hanging on his every word. Amber was applying to colleges, with Stanford being her dream school. My parents had set up college funds for all three of us, but it was no secret that Amber's was the largest. "She's going to need more support," I overheard my mother telling my father one night. "Riley's already established in his career, and Tyler has the military. Amber's the one with the most potential." I pretended not to hear, focusing instead on the wiring diagram spread across my lap. Their favoritism had long since ceased to surprise me. The first signs of trouble began when Amber received her college acceptance letters. The rejection from Stanford came first, leaving her in tears for days. But she was accepted to NYU, her second choice. Instead of being grateful, she threw a tantrum about having to settle for her backup school. "Do you know how expensive New York is?" she wailed at dinner. "The college fund isn't going to be enough for NYU and living in Manhattan." My parents exchanged worried glances. "We'll figure something out, honey," my mother assured her. "Your education is our top priority." I should have recognized the warning signs then. The way my parents looked at each other, the hushed conversations that stopped when I entered the room, the sudden interest in how much my car restoration had cost and what it might be worth now. But I was too caught up in the final stages of bringing Eleanor back to life. After 8 months of blood, sweat, and tears, I finally turned the key in the ignition and heard that V8 engine roar to life. The feeling was indescribable, a perfect blend of pride, accomplishment, and connection to my grandfather's legacy. By the time I finished the restoration, professional appraisers valued Eleanor at approximately $60,000. Not bad for a $7,500 investment and 8 months of labor. I even got featured in a local car magazine, proudly standing next to my creation. I framed the article and hung it in my bedroom, one of the few times in my life I felt truly proud of something I'd accomplished. If only I'd known how short-lived that pride would be. May 15th. The date is burned into my memory like a brand. I had gone away for the weekend to attend a classic car show in the next state with some friends from the auto shop. We left Friday afternoon and planned to return Sunday evening. The weekend was amazing. Eleanor got plenty of attention, and several collectors even approached me with offers to buy her. I turned them all down politely but firmly. "She's not for sale," I told a particularly persistent buyer who offered $55,000 cash on the spot. Some things are worth more than money. I arrived home late Sunday night, exhausted but happy. The house was quiet, my parents already in bed. I pulled into the driveway, but instead of parking Eleanor in the garage as usual, I left her out front so I could admire the way the moonlight played off her freshly waxed paint. I fell asleep that night with a smile on my face. Monday morning came and I headed out to work. When I returned home that evening, something felt off immediately. The garage door was open, which was unusual. When I pulled into the driveway and looked inside, my heart stopped. The garage was empty. Eleanor was gone. In a panic, I ran inside the house. "Mom. Dad. The car's gone. Someone stole Eleanor," I shouted, already pulling out my phone to call the police. My parents were sitting in the living room, looking unusually somber. My father stood up slowly. "No one stole the car, Riley," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "We sold it." The words didn't make sense at first. My brain couldn't process what he was saying. "You, what?" I finally managed to say. "We sold your car," my mother repeated, not quite meeting my eyes. "To William Peterson. He's a collector from Westfield. He gave us a fair price." A fair price? I echoed, feeling like I was in some kind of nightmare. What are you talking about? You had no right to sell my car. It's mine. I bought it with my money, I restored it with my own hands. It was parked on our property, my father said coldly. And Amber needed the money for her tuition and housing at NYU. Her future is at stake here. So is my property. I shouted, my voice rising with disbelief and anger. You can't just sell something that doesn't belong to you. That's theft. Don't be so dramatic, Riley, my mother sighed. It's just a car. You can buy another one someday. Just a car? I repeated, my voice breaking. That car represented 3 years of saving every penny, 8 months of work, blood, sweat, and tears. It was my connection to Grandpa Jack. And you sold it without even asking me? We knew you wouldn't agree, my father said, as if that justified their actions. Sometimes as parents, we have to make tough decisions for the good of the family. For the good of Amber, you mean, I corrected him. How much did you sell it for? My parents exchanged glances. $35,000, my father finally admitted. I laughed bitterly. It was appraised at $60,000. So not only did you steal from me, but you also got ripped off. I ran my hands through my hair, trying to think clearly through the rage and betrayal coursing through me. The money has already been transferred to Amber's tuition account, my mother added, as if that settled the matter. NYU is expensive, and with housing in Manhattan. I don't give a damn about NYU. I exploded. What about me? What about what I want? What about the fact that you stole from your own son to give to your daughter? We didn't steal anything, my father's voice hardened. And watch your language in this house. Just then, Amber walked in from the kitchen, a bowl of ice cream in her hand and a smug smile on her face. What's going on? Why is everyone yelling? She asked, though her expression told me she knew exactly what was happening. They sold Eleanor to pay for your college, I told her, watching her reaction carefully. She shrugged, taking a spoonful of ice cream. It's not like you needed such an expensive car anyway. My education is more important than your hobby. In that moment, looking at my sister's entitled face and my parents' dismissive expressions, something broke inside me. The family I thought I had, despite all their flaws and favoritism, didn't exist. They didn't respect me, my property, or my feelings. How did you even manage to sell it? I asked, suddenly realizing a crucial detail. The title and registration were in my name. My father shifted uncomfortably, and I knew instantly. You forged my signature, I said flatly. It wasn't a question. We did what was necessary, my mother replied defensively. I stood there in silence for a moment, letting the full weight of their betrayal sink in. Then I walked calmly to my room, pulled out a duffel bag, and started packing my clothes. What are you doing? My mother asked, following me to my room. What does it look like? I'm leaving. I'm not staying in a house with thieves. Don't be ridiculous, Riley, she said. Where will you go? Anywhere but here. I continued packing, adding my important documents, the framed magazine article about Eleanor, and Grandpa Jack's pocket watch. Everything else could stay. My father appeared in the doorway. You're overreacting. If you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcomed back with open arms. I zipped up my bag and looked him straight in the eye. I don't expect anything from either of you anymore. That's the one lesson you've taught me well. I brushed past him, walked down the stairs, and headed for the front door. Amber stood in the living room, still eating her ice cream, watching the scene unfold with mild interest, as if it were a TV drama rather than her brother leaving home. Enjoy NYU, I told her coldly. I hope it's worth it. Riley, please, my mother called after me. Let's talk about this. But there was nothing left to say. I walked out the door, got into my work truck, and drove away from the house I'd grown up in, feeling nothing but a cold emptiness where family loyalty should have been. I drove straight to my friend Jake's apartment. Jake and I had been friends since high school, and he was one of the few people who understood my passion for cars and my complicated family dynamics. When I arrived and explained what had happened, he immediately offered his couch for as long as I needed it. "Those bastards," he said, shaking his head in disbelief as I recounted the story. "I always knew your parents favored Amber, but this is a whole new level." That night, as I lay on Jake's lumpy couch staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. This wasn't over. My parents and sister had taken something precious from me, but I wouldn't let them get away with it. Somehow, some way, they would regret what they'd done. For the first week after the betrayal, I was a mess. I went through the motions at work, came back to Jake's apartment, and stared blankly at the TV until it was time to sleep. My phone was flooded with messages and missed calls from my parents, which I ignored. Amber sent one text, "You're being so dramatic. Get over it." I blocked her number immediately. Jake watched me with growing concern. One evening, as I mindlessly flipped through channels, he sat down across from me and turned off the TV. "Enough," he said firmly. "This isn't you, Riley. You don't just give up when things get tough." "What am I supposed to do?" I asked flatly. "The car is gone. My family betrayed me. End of story." Jake leaned forward, his expression intense. "No, not end of story. What your parents did wasn't just morally wrong, it was illegal. They took your property. That's theft." His words cut through the fog of depression that had surrounded me for days. I sat up straighter, something sparking in my mind. "You're right," I said slowly. "They stole from me." "Damn right they did," Jake nodded. "And you know what? You don't have to just take it. You have options." The next day, I called Cassandra Lewis, a friend from my bartending days who had gone on to become an attorney. She agreed to meet me for coffee to discuss my situation. "Let me get this straight," Cassandra said after I explained everything. "The car was registered in your name, you have proof of purchase, you have documentation of all the restoration work, and your parents forged your signature to transfer the title?" I nodded. "Riley, that's forgery and theft. Those are criminal offenses," she said, her legal mind already analyzing the situation. "Do you want to press charges against your parents?" The question hit me hard. Did I want my parents to have criminal records? As angry as I was, that felt extreme. "I just want what's rightfully mine," I told her. "Either the car back or fair compensation for what it was worth." "That's reasonable," Cassandra agreed. "Here's what I suggest. We prepare a legal demand letter outlining the facts of the case, the laws that were broken, and your desired remedy. We send it to both your parents and to this William Peterson who bought the car." "Will that work?" I asked. "It might. Peterson probably has no idea the car was sold to him illegally. When he finds out, he may want to return it rather than be caught up in a legal battle. As for your parents..." She shrugged. "Let's see how they respond to the threat of legal action." Over the next few days, I gathered all my documentation, the original bill of sale when I bought the Mustang, every receipt for parts and materials used in the restoration, before and after photos documenting the work, the magazine article featuring the car, and the registration and insurance papers in my name. I also contacted a professional classic car appraiser who had previously seen Eleanor at the car show. He provided a formal appraisal valuing the fully restored 1969 Mustang at $68,000, even higher than I'd thought. Armed with this documentation, Cassandra drafted a formal legal letter. It outlined in clear terms that the car had been sold without my consent, that my signature had been forged on the title transfer, and that I was prepared to pursue both civil and criminal charges if the situation wasn't remedied. "I'm giving two options," I explained to Jake as we reviewed the letter. "Either return the car to me in the same condition it was taken, or pay me the appraised value of $68,000 plus $12,000 in damages for the emotional distress and inconvenience." $80,000 total, Jake whistled. "That's going to hurt them." "Good," I said firmly. "It's supposed to." Before sending the letters, I decided to meet with my family's longtime lawyer, Harold Bernstein, who had handled my grandfather's will and other family matters over the years. I wanted him to understand my side before my parents inevitably called him. Harold listened carefully to my story, occasionally taking notes. When I finished, he removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Riley, I've known your family for over 20 years, he said slowly. What your parents did was wrong, both legally and morally. But are you sure you want to pursue legal action against them? Family disputes like this can cause permanent damage." "They caused the damage when they stole my car," I replied evenly. "I'm just responding to their actions." "Have you tried talking to them? Finding a compromise?" "They didn't try to talk to me or find a compromise before selling my property," I pointed out. "They can return the car or pay me what it's worth, plus damages. That's my compromise." Harold sighed but nodded. "I understand. For what it's worth, I think you're within your rights here. Just be prepared for the fallout." The next day, Cassandra sent the letters via certified mail to ensure delivery. Within hours of delivery, my phone exploded with notifications. My parents called repeatedly, left voicemails ranging from angry to pleading, and sent multiple texts demanding I call them immediately. I also received a call from an unknown number which turned out to be William Peterson, the man who had bought Eleanor. I decided to answer his call first. "Mr. Morgan? This is William Peterson," he began, his voice tense. "I've just received a rather disturbing letter regarding the 1969 Mustang I purchased from your parents." "Yes, Mr. Peterson. I apologize that you've been drawn into this situation, but that car was sold to you illegally," I explained calmly. "My parents did not have the right to sell it, and they forged my signature on the title transfer." There was a long pause before he spoke again. "I had no idea. Your father assured me everything was in order. I even asked specifically if all family members were in agreement with the sale since it seemed like such a lovingly restored vehicle. I spent 3 years saving for that car and 8 months restoring it," I told him. "It meant everything to me." Peterson sighed heavily. "I believe you, Mr. Morgan. I'm a collector, and I understand the connection people have with these vehicles. They're more than just cars, they're pieces of history, often with deep personal meaning." "Exactly," I said, feeling a wave of relief that someone understood. "However," he continued, "I've already invested additional money in the car. I had the transmission rebuilt and made some other improvements. And to be frank, I've grown quite attached to it over these past weeks." My heart sank. "So you won't return it?" "I didn't say that," Peterson replied carefully. "I'm willing to work something out that's fair to all parties. But I need time to consult with my own attorney about this situation. Can you give me a few days?" I agreed to give him time, appreciating his reasonable approach. If only my family had been as respectful. Later that evening, my parents finally stopped calling and sent a text, "Family meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. Everyone will be there, including Tyler. Please come. We need to resolve this as a family." "Tyler?" My brother was supposed to be deployed for another month. If he was coming home for this, the situation was even more serious than I thought. I showed the message to Jake. "Are you going?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "Yes. But not alone. I'm bringing Cassandra." "Smart move," Jake agreed. "Don't let them gang up on you." That night, I barely slept, mentally preparing for the confrontation to come. One thing was certain, there was no going back. The legal process had begun, and my family would have to face the consequences of their actions. The atmosphere in my parents' house the next evening was so tense you could almost see it shimmering in the air like heat waves. I arrived exactly at 6 p.m. with Cassandra beside me, her briefcase in hand and her most professional expression in place. We were the last to arrive. My parents sat side by side on the sofa, looking like they'd aged years in the week since I'd seen them. Amber perched on the armchair, her face pale and drawn. And there was Tyler, my older brother, standing by the fireplace in civilian clothes, his military bearing still evident in his straight posture and serious expression. "Riley," my mother began, half rising before sinking back down when she saw my cold expression. "Thank you for coming." "This isn't a social visit," I replied evenly. "I'm here to resolve a legal matter. This is Cassandra Lewis, my attorney." "We know who she is," my father said, his voice tight. "What we don't understand is why you've chosen to attack your family with lawyers and threats instead of talking to us." "Attack?" I repeated incredulously. "That's interesting coming from the person who stole and sold my car." "We didn't steal anything," my mother protested. "We needed the money for Amber's college." "That doesn't make it not stealing," Cassandra interjected calmly. "The vehicle was legally Riley's property. Selling it without permission and forging his signature constitutes theft and forgery, both criminal offenses." "We're aware of the legal implications, Ms. Lewis," my father said stiffly. "That's why we've asked everyone to come together today. To find a solution before this goes any further." Tyler, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "Before we continue, I want to know exactly what happened. I got a frantic call from Mom saying Riley was suing the family, but I haven't heard the full story." I looked at my brother, the family golden boy who nevertheless had always treated me fairly. "They sold Eleanor without my knowledge or permission to pay for Amber's college tuition. They forged my signature on the title transfer and sold her for nearly half what she was worth." Tyler's eyes widened, then narrowed as he turned to our parents. "Is this true?" My father shifted uncomfortably. "We did what we had to do for the family." "For Amber," I corrected. "Not for the family." Tyler shook his head, clearly disgusted. "I can't believe you too. What were you thinking?" "We were thinking about Amber's future," my mother burst out. "NYU is expensive, and her college fund wasn't enough to cover everything. What were we supposed to do? Maybe teach her about student loans, like normal parents?" I suggested sarcastically. "Or community college for 2 years? Or any solution that didn't involve stealing from another one of your children?" "It wasn't stealing," my father insisted, but his voice lacked conviction now. Tyler turned to Amber, who had been uncharacteristically quiet. "And what do you have to say about all this? Did you know what they were doing?" Amber looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. "Almost. I knew they were going to sell the car," she admitted in a small voice. "But I thought Riley would understand once they explained how important my education is." "Your education is no more important than my property rights," I told her firmly. "You're tearing this family apart over a car," my mother suddenly exclaimed, tears forming in her eyes. "Is that really worth it, Riley? Is some hunk of metal and rubber worth destroying your family over?" "I'm not the one who destroyed anything," I replied coldly. "You did that when you decided my property was yours to dispose of. And it wasn't just some car. It was my connection to Grandpa Jack. It was 3 years of savings and 8 months of work. It was mine." The room fell silent. Cassandra took the opportunity to open her briefcase and remove a document. "We're not here to assign blame," she said diplomatically, though everyone in the room knew exactly where the blame lay. "We're here to find a resolution. Riley has made his position clear: either the car is returned in the condition it was taken, or he is to be compensated for its full appraised value plus damages for emotional distress." $80,000, my father exclaimed, his face reddening. "That's extortion. We don't have that kind of money." "You should have thought of that before selling a $68,000 car for $35,000, I pointed out. "Actually," Cassandra interjected, "I've spoken with Mr. Peterson, the current owner of the vehicle. He's willing to return the car for the amount he paid plus compensation for additional work he's had done. That would come to approximately $38,000. My parents exchanged worried glances. "We don't have that kind of money either," my mother admitted. "The $35,000 is already gone, paid directly to NYU for Amber's first-year tuition and housing deposit. Then I guess we'll see you in court, I said, standing up. Both civil and criminal. Wait, Tyler said, placing a hand on my shoulder. Let me talk to Riley privately for a minute. Reluctantly, I followed my brother to the kitchen, away from the others. Look, he said once we were alone, what they did was wrong. Completely wrong. I'm not defending them. Good, I replied. Because there's no defense for what they did. I agree, Tyler nodded. But taking them to court. Riley, they could face criminal charges. Dad could lose his job if he has a fraud conviction. Is that really what you want? I leaned against the counter, suddenly tired. What I want is my car back. Or what it was worth. That's all I've ever wanted out of this. I have savings, Tyler offered. From my military service. I could loan them the money to pay you back. I stared at him, surprised by the offer. You'd do that for them? After what they did? Not for them, Tyler clarified. For the family as a whole. To avoid something that can't be undone. I considered it for a moment, then shook my head. No. If you bail them out, they'll never learn their lesson. They'll just keep favoring Amber at everyone else's expense, including yours. Tyler sighed but nodded in understanding. So what's your solution? An idea had been forming in the back of my mind since I'd learned the money had gone to Amber's tuition. Now it crystallized into a clear plan. Amber, I said simply. She needs to pay me back. Amber? She doesn't have any money, Tyler pointed out. No, but she has time. And the ability to work, I replied. If she wants to go to NYU so badly, she can pay for it herself, including paying me back for what was stolen from me. We returned to the living room, where an uncomfortable silence had fallen. All eyes turned to us expectantly. I have a proposal, I announced. Since the money from my stolen property went to benefit Amber, she will be the one to repay me. That's ridiculous, my mother protested. She's a student. Students can work, I replied firmly. Here's my offer, Amber will get a part-time job during the school year and a full-time job during summers. She will make monthly payments to me until the full $68,000 is repaid. That could take years. Amber exclaimed, looking horrified at the prospect of actually working. Yes, it will, I agreed. About as long as it took me to save for, buy, and restore that car. Seems fair to me. And the alternative? My father asked quietly. Cassandra answered for me. The alternative is that we proceed with both civil and criminal charges. Based on the evidence, Riley would likely be awarded the full amount plus damages in civil court. And you and your wife would face criminal charges for forgery and theft. The room fell silent again as the gravity of the situation sank in. I think Riley's offer is more than fair, Tyler finally said. He could be pressing charges, but instead he's offering a way for everyone to avoid legal consequences. My parents looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. My father turned to me. What about interest? He asked. Would you expect interest on these payments? Yes, I said firmly. Market rate. And we'd need a legally binding agreement that if payments are missed, there would be consequences. What kind of consequences? Amber asked, her voice small. The remaining debt would become due immediately, Cassandra explained. And if it couldn't be paid, it would affect Amber's credit score significantly. Plus, we would still retain the right to pursue legal action. This is insane, Amber muttered. I didn't even do anything wrong. You accepted stolen property, I corrected her. And you knew where it came from. Another silence fell as my family considered the offer. Finally, my father spoke. We need time to discuss this as a family, he said formally. Can you give us until tomorrow to decide? I nodded. You have until noon tomorrow. After that, we proceed with legal action. As Cassandra and I prepared to leave, Tyler walked us to the door. You know they're going to take the deal, right? He said quietly. they don't have a choice. I know, I replied. But I want them to really think about what they did and the consequences of their actions. Tyler nodded, then surprised me with a quick hug. For what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened. The car was beautiful. Grandpa Jack would have been proud. I swallowed the sudden lump in my throat. Thanks, Ty. As we drove away, Cassandra glanced at me. You okay? Yeah, I said, realizing it was true. For the first time since this happened, I think I actually am. The next morning at exactly 11:58 a.m., my phone rang. It was my father. We accept your terms, he said without preamble. Under certain conditions. What conditions? I asked warily. First, we want the payment plan to be reasonable based on what Amber can actually earn as a student. Second, we want your word that once this agreement is signed, you'll put this behind you and try to repair your relationship with the family. I considered his requests. The first was reasonable enough, the second was more complicated. I'll agree to a fair payment plan, I conceded. As for repairing relationships, that will depend on more than just me. I'm not the one who broke trust in the first place. My father was silent for a moment. Fair enough, he finally said. When can we meet to formalize this agreement? We arranged to meet at Cassandra's office later that day. When I arrived, my parents and Amber were already there, sitting stiffly in the waiting area. They looked like they were attending a funeral rather than resolving a family dispute. In Cassandra's conference room, we hammered out the details of the agreement. Amber would get a part-time job working at least 20 hours per week during the school year and full-time during summer and holiday breaks. She would make monthly payments of $800 during school months and $1,500 during full-time working months. This payment schedule will take approximately 5 years to repay the principal amount, Cassandra explained, sliding the paperwork across the table. With the agreed-upon interest rate of 4%, the total repayment will be approximately $76,000. 5 years? Amber exclaimed, looking horrified. Would you prefer we go to court? I asked coldly. She fell silent, staring at the papers in front of her. There's one more thing, I added. I want a formal apology. From all of you. Acknowledging what you did was wrong. My mother looked like she wanted to object, but my father placed a hand on her arm. That's reasonable, he said quietly. We did wrong by you, Riley. We allowed our favoritism toward Amber to cloud our judgment, and we violated your trust in the worst way possible. For that, I am truly sorry. His sincerity surprised me. I hadn't expected him to admit to the favoritism that had shaped our family dynamics for as long as I could remember. My mother's apology was less direct but still seemed genuine. I never meant to hurt you. I was so focused on Amber's needs that I didn't stop to think about yours. I'm sorry for the pain we've caused you. Amber, predictably, was the most reluctant. I'm sorry you felt betrayed, she began, but stopped when she saw my expression harden. I'm sorry I accepted something that wasn't rightfully mine to take. I should have stood up for you instead of just thinking about myself. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. We all signed the agreement, Amber looking like she was signing her own death warrant, my parents with resigned acceptance, and me with a sense of vindication tinged with sadness that it had come to this. As we prepared to leave, my father approached me. Will you come home now? He asked quietly. I shook my head. No. I've found an apartment. I'll be moving in next week. He nodded, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Can we at least expect to see you for Sunday dinners sometimes? Maybe, I replied, not ready to make promises I wasn't sure I could keep. Let's take it one step at a time. Later that evening, I got a call from William Peterson. Mr. Morgan? I wanted to let you know that I've been in contact with your attorney. I understand you've reached an agreement with your family. Yes, I confirmed. I won't be pursuing the return of the car. I'm glad to hear that, Peterson said, sounding relieved. But I want you to know something. The car is in good hands. I understand what it meant to you, and I promise to care for it the way you would have. Thank you, I said, surprised by the lump forming in my throat. That means a lot. Perhaps someday, when all this has passed, you might want to come see her again? Maybe take her for a drive for old time's sake? The offer touched me more than I expected. I'd like that, I admitted. It's a date then. Just let me know when, Peterson said kindly. And Mr. Morgan? For what it's worth, I think you handled this situation with remarkable restraint and maturity. Not many would have shown such mercy. After we hung up, I sat in Jake's apartment, turning Peterson's words over in my mind. Had I been merciful? It hadn't felt that way. It had felt like justice, cold and necessary. But perhaps there was a kind of mercy in offering a path to redemption rather than simply punishment. The next day, I received the first notification that Amber had applied for a job at the campus bookstore. The reality of her new situation was apparently sinking in. Good. Sometimes the hardest lessons were the most important ones to learn. 6 months passed in a blur. I moved into my new apartment, threw myself into my work at the auto shop, and tried to build a new life separate from my family drama. The monthly payments from Amber arrived like clockwork, sometimes with a begrudging note, sometimes with nothing at all. To my surprise, she seemed to be taking the responsibility seriously. According to Tyler, who had resumed his deployment but kept in touch regularly, Amber had not only maintained her bookstore job but had also picked up weekend shifts at a coffee shop near campus. Her complaints about the workload had gradually decreased as the months went by. I think she's actually learning something from all this, Tyler told me during one of our weekly phone calls. She mentioned that she never realized how hard it is to earn money before. Better late than never, I guess, I replied, still not ready to give her too much credit. With the first few payments, I decided to look for another classic car project. It wouldn't be Eleanor, but it might help fill the void her loss had created. I found a 1967 Chevelle in rough but promising condition and bought it for $6,000. The restoration would take time, but I had plenty of that now. One evening in October, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It was my father. Riley, he began formally, I was wondering if you might be available for dinner this Friday. Just the two of us. The request surprised me. In the months since the agreement, my contact with my parents had been minimal, a terse text message here and there, but no real conversation. Why? I asked, not bothering to hide my suspicion. I'd like to talk to you, he replied simply. Man to man. Curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet him at a steakhouse halfway between our homes. When I arrived, my father was already waiting, looking nervous in a way I'd rarely seen before. He stood up to greet me, awkwardly extending his hand instead of going for his usual bear hug. I shook it briefly before sitting down. After ordering our food and engaging in stilted small talk about work and the weather, my father finally got to the point. Riley, I owe you an apology, he said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. A real one, not the forced one from Cassandra's office. I waited, saying nothing. What we did to you was wrong on every level, he continued. Not just legally wrong, but morally wrong. We betrayed your trust. We disrespected you as a person and violated your rights. And we've been doing it in smaller ways your entire life. This frank admission shocked me. My father had always been the type to double down rather than admit fault. The truth is, he went on, your mother and I have had to do some serious soul-searching these past months. We've had to face some ugly truths about ourselves as parents. We've always favored Amber, and to a lesser extent, Tyler. We've taken you for granted because you were always the self-sufficient one, the one who didn't seem to need us as much. That doesn't make it right, I said quietly. No, it doesn't, he agreed immediately. Nothing excuses what we did. But I want you to know that we're working on it. We've even started seeing a family therapist to address our issues with favoritism and boundaries. I raised my eyebrows at this. My father, the stoic construction foreman who thought therapy was for weak people, was seeing a therapist? It's been enlightening, he admitted, reading my expression. Painful, but enlightening. We've had to confront some hard truths about ourselves. Like what? I asked, genuinely curious now. Like the fact that we've been unfair to you your entire life. That we've held you to different standards than your siblings. That we've dismissed your passions and accomplishments because they didn't fit our expectations. He paused, looking down at his hands. And that we've damaged our relationship with you, possibly beyond repair. The raw honesty in his voice caught me off guard. This was not the defensive, authoritarian father I was used to. We've also had to downsize, he continued after a moment. The legal fees from the whole mess, plus helping Amber with her remaining tuition costs, we couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments. We sold the house and moved into a condo. I hadn't known this. I'm sorry, I said automatically, though I wasn't sure if I truly meant it. Don't be, he replied firmly. It's a consequence of our actions, and we're accepting it. Just like Amber is accepting her responsibility to work for her education. It's been a wake-up call for all of us. We ate in silence for a while, digesting both our food and the conversation. Finally, I spoke. Thank you for telling me all this, I said carefully. I appreciate your honesty. Does this mean you might be willing to try rebuilding our relationship? He asked, hope evident in his voice. I considered the question seriously. I don't know, I answered truthfully. Trust is easy to break and hard to rebuild. But I'm willing to take small steps and see where they lead. It wasn't the answer he wanted, but it was the only one I could give. He nodded, accepting it with more grace than I expected. Over the next few months, those small steps began to accumulate. Weekly dinners with my father turned into occasional family meals that included my mother. They were awkward at first, with everyone walking on eggshells, but gradually became more natural. During one such dinner in December, my mother hesitantly brought up Christmas plans. We were thinking of having a small gathering at the condo, she said. Just family. Would you consider joining us? I had been planning to work through the holidays to avoid this very scenario, but something in her expression, a mixture of hope and resignation, made me reconsider. I could stop by for a few hours, I conceded. The relief on her face was palpable. Tyler will be home on leave, she added. And Amber's coming home from New York. I hadn't seen my sister since the day we signed the agreement. The prospect of facing her again stirred complicated emotions. Christmas Day arrived cold and clear. I pulled up to my parents' new condo, a modest two-bedroom unit in a quiet complex, with a small gift bag and low expectations. To my surprise, it was Amber who opened the door. She had changed in the 7 months since I'd seen her. The entitled princess demeanor had diminished, replaced by something more subdued and mature. Her designer clothes had been replaced by simpler, more practical attire, and the perpetual look of mild disdain was gone from her expression. Riley, she said, her voice uncertain. You came. I said I would, I replied neutrally. We stood awkwardly for a moment before she stepped back to let me in. The condo was small but tastefully decorated for the holidays, though nothing like the elaborate displays my mother used to create in the old house. Tyler engulfed me in a bear hug as soon as I entered the living room. About time you showed up, he grinned. I was about to start opening your presents. The day progressed better than I had anticipated. We exchanged modest gifts, enjoyed a simple but delicious meal, and managed to maintain civil, sometimes even warm, conversation. My parents were trying hard, too hard, at times, but the effort was evident and appreciated. After dinner, as my father and Tyler became engrossed in a football game on TV, Amber approached me in the kitchen where I was helping my mother with dishes. Can we talk? She asked quietly. Privately? Curious, I followed her onto the small balcony overlooking the community garden. She closed the door behind us and took a deep breath of the cold winter air. I wanted to give you this, she said, handing me an envelope. It's not much, but it's something. Inside was a check for $500, above and beyond her regular monthly payment. "I've been picking up extra shifts at both jobs," she explained, seeing my confusion. "I wanted to pay you back faster than the agreement requires." I stared at the check, then at my sister. "Why?" She leaned against the railing, looking out at the bare trees. "When I first started working, I hated it. I hated you for making me do it. I hated Mom and Dad for agreeing to it. I was angry all the time." "And now?" I prompted when she paused. "Now I get it," she said simply. "I get why what they did was so wrong. I get why you were so hurt and angry. Because now I understand what it means to work hard for something, to sacrifice for it, to be proud of earning it yourself." She turned to face me directly. "I made the dean's list this semester, did you know that?" I shook my head. "First time ever," she said with a small smile. "Turns out when you have to work for something, you value it more." Who knew, right? The irony in her tone made me smile despite myself. "Congratulations," I said, meaning it. "My point is," she continued, "I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not just for accepting the money from your car, but for being the spoiled brat who never appreciated anything because she never had to work for it." Her apology, unlike the forced one in Cassandra's office, rang true. I could see the genuine remorse in her eyes, the new understanding that had come at a cost to her comfort but perhaps a benefit to her character. "Thank you," I said, accepting both the check and the apology. "That means a lot." We stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching our breath form clouds in the cold air. "Do you think we'll ever be okay again?" she asked finally. "As a family, I mean." I considered the question carefully. "I think we're finding a new normal," I replied honestly. "It won't be the same as before, but maybe it can be better in some ways. More honest. More equal." She nodded, seeming to accept this answer. "For what it's worth, I'm going to keep working extra shifts. I want to pay you back faster. Not just because I have to, but because I want to." As we headed back inside to join the rest of the family, I realized something had shifted within me. The anger that had been my constant companion for months had begun to fade, replaced by something close to pride in my sister's growth, in my parents' efforts to change, and in my own ability to stand up for myself while still leaving room for reconciliation. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be. But it was progress. And sometimes, that's enough. 3 years passed, bringing changes none of us could have predicted on that fateful day when I discovered Eleanor missing from the garage. I established my own auto restoration business, turning my passion into a successful career. My parents fully embraced their downsized lifestyle, finding unexpected freedom and simplicity. Tyler completed his military service and enrolled in engineering school. And Amber surprised us all. On a sunny May afternoon, I found myself sitting in a crowded auditorium at NYU's graduation ceremony. 3 years of working multiple jobs while maintaining her studies had transformed my once entitled sister into a determined young woman with a degree in business administration and a job offer from a respected marketing firm already in hand. As I watched her cross the stage to receive her diploma, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Pride in what she had accomplished. Respect for how she had grown. And a sense of closure as I realized we had all, in our different ways, moved beyond the betrayal that had once threatened to destroy our family. True to her word, Amber had worked extra hours throughout her college years, accelerating her payments to me. Just last month, she had handed me the final check, along with a handmade card that simply said, "Thank you for the hardest and best lesson of my life." After the ceremony, we gathered outside in the courtyard, my parents, Tyler, me, and the woman of the hour, Amber, still in her cap and gown, beaming with pride. "I have a surprise," she announced, reaching into her graduation gown to pull out a folder. "I want to do this properly." Inside the folder was the repayment agreement we had signed 3 years ago in Cassandra's office. Every payment had been meticulously recorded and signed off on. "It's done," she said, handing me the folder. "Paid in full, with interest." My father produced a lighter. "We thought you might want to do the honors," he said, offering it to me. I took the lighter and the agreement, then hesitated. "Actually, I think I'll keep this," I said, tucking the folder under my arm. "As a reminder of how I betrayed you?" Amber asked, her expression falling. "No," I corrected her. "As a reminder that people can change. That actions have consequences, but also that those consequences can lead to growth." I looked around at my family. I think we've all grown from this experience, in different ways. My mother stepped forward, taking my free hand in hers. "We certainly have," she agreed, her eyes misty. "I've learned that true parental love means treating each child as an individual with their own dreams and rights, not playing favorites or making one child's needs more important than another's. And I've learned that taking shortcuts in life only cheats yourself in the end," Amber added. "Working for what I have has given me confidence I never had before. I know now that I can stand on my own 2 feet." My father cleared his throat, clearly emotional but trying to maintain his composure. "I've learned that admitting when you're wrong isn't weakness, it's the first step toward making things right." Tyler threw an arm around my shoulders. "And I've learned that my little brother is a force to be reckoned with when someone crosses him," he joked, lightening the moment. We laughed together, the sound marking a moment of true healing in our family's journey. Later that evening, as we celebrated at a restaurant Amber had chosen and insisted on paying for, my treat, I'm an employed college graduate now, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from William Peterson, the man who had bought Eleanor. Attached was a photo of the car, gleaming in the sunset, looking even more beautiful than when I'd last seen her. "Still taking good care of her," the message read. "Thought you might like to see. The offer still stands. Come visit her anytime." I showed the picture to my family. "She looks amazing," Amber said softly. "I'm sorry we took her from you, Riley." "I really am." "I know," I said, and I meant it. But you know what? In a strange way, losing that car gave me something more valuable." "What's that?" she asked. "Self-respect," I replied. "The knowledge that I could stand up for myself, even against the people I love. And eventually, a family that sees and respects me for who I am." We had all paid a high price for the lessons we'd learned. My parents had lost their home and had to rebuild their relationship with their children. Amber had lost her carefree college experience, working long hours while her peers partied and relaxed. And I had lost Eleanor, the car that had connected me to my grandfather's memory. But we had gained something too. A more honest relationship with each other. A deeper understanding of accountability and consequences. And a new appreciation for the work it takes to maintain a healthy family dynamic. As we raised our glasses in a toast to Amber's graduation, I realized that the car had never been just about the car. It had been about respect, about being seen and valued. And in fighting for that respect, I had ultimately helped reshape our family into something stronger and more authentic than before. To new beginnings, Tyler proposed. And hard-earned lessons, Amber added. To family, my father said, his voice thick with emotion. The real kind, my mother amended. Where everyone is valued equally. To Eleanor, I said quietly, raising my glass. The car that changed us all. We clinked glasses, united in a way we had never been before. The journey hadn't been easy, and the pain of betrayal had left scars that would never completely fade. But as I looked around at the faces of my family, I knew we had found our way to something better on the other side. Have you ever had to stand up to your family to protect something important to you? How did it change your relationships? Share your stories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life family drama and lessons learned the hard way. Remember, sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most meaningful growth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.